When I picked up the phone to ask my son Jake about his wedding date, my daughter-in-law Sophie gave me a smile that still chills me to this day. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, almost playfully, "Oh, we already tied the knot yesterday. We only invited the people who truly mattered." Those words, the people who truly mattered, fell on me like stones. For 3 long years, I had covered their rent every single month. I had furnished their apartment from top to bottom. I stocked their fridge when they couldn't even afford milk. And yet, in Sophie's eyes, I was not someone who mattered. I stood frozen in my own living room, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Jake wouldn't even look at me. His eyes darted away while Sophie lounged comfortably on the very sofa I had bought for them. In my closet, a pale pink dress hung uselessly, along with the new shoes I had bought just for their wedding. I had spent over $200 on that outfit, thinking I'd look nice in the pictures on Jake's big day. Pictures that would never include me. I had imagined giving them $1,000 as a gift, something to help them start their new life together. I had scrubbed my home from floor to ceiling, expecting they'd stop by after the ceremony to celebrate with me. I had even called my sister Clara in Chicago, excited to share the news. All those plans crumbled the moment Sophie said those four poisoned words. Only the people who mattered. Finally, Jake spoke in a low, rehearsed voice. "Mom, it was just a very small gathering, only the two of us and the witnesses." But I knew the truth. I had already seen the photos online. Sophie's parents were there, standing proudly next to the bride and groom. Her siblings were there too, raising champagne glasses. I even recognized the white dress Sophie wore, paid for, unknowingly, with the $800 I had given her just weeks before, thinking it was for her personal expenses. And I was nowhere to be found. 7 days after that humiliation, Sophie called me again. Her tone was entirely different. Gone was the smugness from before. Now her voice trembled, urgent, almost desperate. "Granny June, the rent's late. The landlord says he'll kick us out if we don't pay this week. Did you forget to make the transfer?" I sat in silence, remembering all the mornings I had rushed to the bank for them, all the dinners I skipped so they could eat, all the times I sacrificed my comfort to keep a roof over their heads. And after all of that, after cutting me out of the most sacred moment in my son's life, they had the audacity to call me as if nothing had happened. I took a breath and answered with a calmness that startled even me. "Sophie, didn't I once tell you I only help the people who matter?" The silence on the other end was deafening. For once, she was the one trembling. "Granny June, I don't understand," she stammered. "We've always been special to you. You're like a second mother to me." Lies, smooth, practiced lies. The same sweet voice she used whenever she wanted money. For the dress, for the honeymoon, for the rings. All the things I had paid for without realizing I'd never be welcome at the ceremony itself. For years, I had walked on eggshells, desperate for a scrap of affection. I had been the perfect mother, the silent provider, the invisible supporter. But those four words, "only the people who mattered," awakened something inside me. That night, I sat on my bed and cried. not out of sorrow, but from anger, frustration, years of humiliation building up. I wept for all the times they made me feel my love was nothing but a nuisance, that my presence was an afterthought, that my money was my only value. When the tears dried, a new feeling settled in me. Cold, steady, a determination I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror. The same tired eyes looked back at me. The wrinkles were there, each line a story of sacrifices made. But there was also something new, a sharpness in my gaze, a quiet strength I hadn't seen before. I brewed coffee, but unlike every morning for the past 3 years, I didn't check my phone waiting for Jake's apologies. I didn't plan my day around their needs. For the first time in a long time, I put myself first. At the kitchen table, I pulled out my bank statements and began tallying the cost of my own foolishness. Rent payments, $18,000. Groceries and supplies, $7,000. Gifts and holidays, $3,000. Medical emergencies, $800. A car loan they never repaid, $2,500. Furniture, repairs, odds and ends, another few thousand. The total? Over $33,000. 33,000 of my retirement savings, 33,000 from the nest egg my late husband left me, 33,000 spent on two adults who didn't even think I was worth an invitation to their wedding. The phone buzzed. Jake's name lit up the screen. Normally, I'd have answered immediately, heart pounding, hoping for some shred of an apology. This time, I let it ring. It rang again. Sophie this time. I let it ring too. A text arrived. "Mom, please pick up. We need to talk." I deleted it without replying. Instead, I put on my coat and went for a walk. I hadn't walked just for myself in years. Only errands for them, trips to the bank, groceries for their house, medicine for Sophie. I passed the park where I used to take Jake when he was a little boy. I remembered the way he once clung to me, whispering, "You're the best mom in the world." When had that sweet boy turned into a man who saw me as nothing but a wallet? By the time I got home, I knew something deep inside me had shifted. I wasn't going to be their silent provider anymore. I wasn't going to be invisible. For the first time in decades, I was ready to fight back.
You can't just come in here and take everything.
Yeah.
This is what your grandfather wanted.
The documents are quite clear.
The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from Jake, calls from Sophie, calls from numbers I didn't even recognize. For years, that sound had been my alarm clock, my leash. But now, I turned the phone face down and sipped my coffee slowly. By the afternoon, there were 3 missed calls, 4 voicemails, and a handful of desperate texts. "Mom, we need you. Please don't do this to us. We can't pay rent without you." Not once did the messages ask how I was. Not once did they say, "We're sorry." All they wanted was the money. That evening, I went to the bank. Mr. Keller, the branch manager, greeted me warmly. He had known me for years, always seeing me there transferring funds for Jake and Sophie. "Mrs. June," he said kindly, "another transfer today?" "No," I replied, my voice steady. "I need to cancel them permanently, and I want to make sure nobody has access to my accounts but me." His eyebrows rose in surprise. "Are you certain? It's been, well, a long routine for you." Yes, I'm certain. For the first time in years, this is my money again. As Mr. Keller processed the paperwork, my phone lit up again, Jake's name flashing insistently. He must have felt the shift, like an animal sensing danger when its food source disappears. I turned the phone off. Walking out of the bank that day, I felt strangely light. I had just lifted a $33,000 burden off my shoulders. But freedom, I was about to learn, is something abusers rarely let go of quietly. When I came home that evening, 3 cars were parked in front of my house: Jake's, Sophie's, and one I didn't recognize. Through the curtains, I saw movement inside. My heart pounded. I had given them keys years ago, back when I still trusted them. I walked in and froze. Jake sat slumped on my sofa, head in his hands. Sophie paced the room like a caged lioness, and at my dining table, a man in a gray suit shuffled through my personal papers. "What's going on here?" I demanded. All 3 turned to look at me, as if I were the intruder in my own home. Sophie rushed forward with feigned relief. "Granny June, thank goodness you're here. This is Mr. Foster. He's with a law firm. We thought it was best to get some professional guidance about your situation." "My situation?" I asked sharply. "What situation? I'm perfectly fine." Jake finally looked up, eyes red, but not from tears, from panic. "Mom, the bank told us you canceled the transfers. They said you blocked us from your accounts. We don't understand why." Mr. Foster stepped toward me, hand extended. "Mrs. June, I'm a family law attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental health. They've asked me to assess the matter." I ignored his hand and went straight to my cable, gathering up my papers. "These are my private documents. You have no right to look at them." Jake's voice turned condescending. "Mom, we're just worried. Your behavior has been unusual. Cutting us off without warning, ignoring our calls. It's not like you." Sophie tried her best, sweet act, taking my hand as if she cared. "Granny, we think the loneliness might be getting to you. At your age, confusion is normal." The word confusion rang in my ears like an alarm bell. Now I understood. They weren't just upset about the money. They were trying to make me legally incompetent, to take over everything. I stood tall. "I am not confused. I am clearer than I have been in years, and you are all leaving my house right now." Mr. Foster spoke smoothly. "Mrs. June, your children only want what's best for you. If you refuse to cooperate, they may be forced to take legal action. Guardianship could protect your assets, make sure you're cared for." "Guardianship?" I laughed bitterly. "So, deciding my money belongs to me is erratic? Choosing to stop funding 2 grown adults is proof of decline? What nonsense!" Sophie's mask cracked, her voice rising. "Everything you own will be ours one day anyway. Why wait? Why make things harder on us?" There it was, the truth, finally spoken aloud. Jake stood now, face twisted with anger. "Mom, you can't just abandon us. We have obligations. The car loan, the credit cards, you co-signed for those. You owe us." "Owe you?" I shouted, my voice breaking for the first time. I have paid your rent, your bills, your whims for years. I don't owe you a single cent more." Mr. Foster slid a folder across the table. "Mrs. June, if you sign these documents, granting Jake and Sophie power of attorney, everything will go smoothly, just until you're back to your normal self." I picked up the folder, didn't even open it, and dropped it straight into the trash. The only thing happening here is you all walking out my front door. Sophie began to cry, loud, angry tears, not sorrowful ones. "You can't do this to us, Granny. We planned our life with your support." "Your life," I said coldly, "was built on my sacrifice. Not my love, not my happiness, just my money. And that ends today." Jake stepped closer, voice low and threatening. "Mom, if you keep this up, it's going to end badly. You'll be all alone. No one will be there when you actually need help." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I already am alone, Jake. The difference is, this time, it's by my choice." The room fell silent. Finally, they left. But as I closed the door, I knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of a war I never wanted, but could no longer avoid. And deep inside, I realized something chilling. They weren't just going to stop. They were going to fight back, harder, uglier, and more desperate. And I had to be ready. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. For years, my life had revolved around Jake and Sophie's needs. Now, for the first time, I was planning for myself. But it wasn't only about protecting my money anymore. No, this was about protecting me. By morning, I had already made my decision. I dressed carefully and went straight to the office of Mr. Whitman, an attorney I had met years ago when handling my husband's estate. Unlike the slick lawyer Sophie dragged into my house, Mr. Whitman had a reputation for honesty and for protecting people like me, the elderly, the vulnerable, the overlooked. I sat in his office, hands trembling slightly as I explained everything. The secret wedding, $33,000, the humiliations, the attempt to brand me as incompetent. Mr. Whitman listened quietly, his face grave. He said, "Mrs. June, what your children attempted is called elder financial abuse. It is, sadly, very common and very serious. If they try to pursue legal guardianship, we will be ready. But more importantly, we're going to build a wall around your life they'll never climb." His words steadied me. "What do I need to do?" I asked. "First, document everything. Every transfer, every payment, every time they pressured you. Second, change your locks. Third, install security. And fourth, open a new bank account at an institution where they have no contacts." I nodded. For the first time, I felt less like a victim and more like a commander preparing for battle. The very next day, I went to the hardware store. Mr. Sanders, the owner, had known me for years. He raised an eyebrow when I asked about the best locks they had. "Not for Jake's apartment again?" he asked gently. "No," I replied firmly. "This time, for my own house." His son, Eric, who worked with security systems, overheard. "Mrs. June, we can install cameras and alarms for you too. You'll be able to see everything from your phone." Perfect. That evening, while the locksmith worked, my phone rang again and again. Unknown numbers. Then Sophie's voice, this time from someone else's phone. "Granny June, please don't hang up. We want to make it up to you. How about a special dinner to celebrate the wedding? Just us, at your house, like old times." Her sugary tone almost made me laugh. "How much rent do you owe right now, Sophie?" I asked flatly. Silence, then a shaky reply. 2 months, $1,000? "So this dinner," I said coldly, "is really just another bill wrapped in a smile, isn't it?" "Granny, we love you. Don't you see that? If love is measured by money, then you never loved me at all." And I hung up. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I treated myself. I went to the salon for a haircut and color. As the scissors snipped away the dead ends, I felt pieces of my old self falling away. "You look beautiful, Mrs. June. But more than that, you look free." She was right. When I got home, I found someone sitting on my porch. Steps. An older woman I barely knew. My neighbor, Eleanor. She held a mug of tea. "Mrs. June, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I heard shouting at your house yesterday. Are you all right?" Her kindness touched me in a way my own son's words hadn't in years. I invited her in. Over steaming cups of coffee, I told her everything. By the end, Eleanor's eyes were wet. I went through something similar with my daughter. Cutting off the money was the hardest thing I ever did, but it saved me. And in time, it saved her too. Her story gave me hope. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't doomed to loneliness. The following week, Jake and Sophie came back, but this time not just with anger. They came with reinforcements. I saw them through my new cameras before I even opened the door. Jake, Sophie, two strangers, papers in hand. I called Mr. Whitman immediately. "They're here again," I whispered. "What do I do?" He ordered, "Don't open the door. I'll call the police. And don't forget, yesterday, the court approved our emergency restraining order. They're trespassing now." Minutes later, patrol cars arrived. The officers ordered them off my property. From the sidewalk, Jake shouted furiously, "Mom, this is insane! You can't call the police on your own family." Family doesn't try to steal from you, Jake. Family doesn't call you crazy just to get your money. Sophie screamed from the street, "You'll regret this! You owe us!" Their threats no longer scared me. They only confirmed I had been right. The harassment continued. Phone calls, letters, even strangers showing up at my door claiming to be concerned professionals. One day, a neatly dressed young woman arrived, flashing an ID. "I'm a social worker from Senior Services. We received reports that you've shown unusual behavior, cutting ties from your family, installing security systems, refusing their help." It was Sophie's lies turned official. "Ma'am," I said, "you'll wait until my lawyer arrives before I answer anything." When Mr. Whitman came, he spread a folder of documentation across the table. Every dollar I had spent, every incident of manipulation, every false claim. The social worker left, embarrassed, realizing she had been misled. But the message was clear. Jake and Sophie weren't backing down. They were escalating. Weeks later, Mr. Whitman came to my house with grim news. "Mrs. June, they filed a formal lawsuit. They're asking the court to declare you mentally incompetent. If they succeed, Jake will be your legal guardian, with full control over your finances." The words nearly knocked the air out of my chest. My own son was trying to erase me legally. "Can they win?" I whispered. "They'll try, but we'll fight harder. And I think you might have a secret weapon." I leaned forward. "What do you mean?" He gave a small, knowing smile. "You've kept records of everything. You've built allies, and you've stayed sharper, clearer, and stronger than anyone could argue against. That may be the very thing that saves you."
And for the first time since this nightmare began, I realized he was right. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was preparing. And when the moment came, I would be ready with a truth they never saw coming.
The courthouse smelled of old wood and tension. I sat straight backed in my black suit, hands clasped in my lap, as if holding on to every ounce of strength I had left. Jake and Sophie sat across from me. Jake in a stiff new suit he clearly couldn't afford. Sophie dressed in black, as though she were attending a funeral. Perhaps in her mind she was, the funeral of my independence. Their lawyer began, smooth and confident. "Your Honor," he declared, "Mrs. June has demonstrated alarming changes in behavior. She cut off her family financially without reason. She has become paranoid, installing cameras, refusing to communicate. These are signs of decline. For her own safety, we request guardianship be granted to her son Jake." Every word was designed to twist my newfound freedom into a sickness. Then came the witnesses. Sophie cried convincingly, claiming I had always been like a mother to her and that my sudden hostility had broken her heart. Jake swore I was acting erratically, not myself. A neighbor testified about my security cameras, painting them as proof of paranoia. I sat quietly, heart pounding, waiting. When it was our turn, my lawyer, Mr. Whitman, rose with calm authority. "Your Honor, this is not the case of a confused woman. This is the case of a woman who has finally stopped being exploited." He called witnesses of our own. Mr. Green, my pharmacist, explained how Sophie had manipulated him into signing a misleading statement. Eric from the hardware store testified that I had rationally requested locks and cameras after clear invasions of privacy. Eleanor and my new friends spoke of my clarity, my strength, my independence. And then Dr. Moore, the psychiatrist, presented her evaluation. "Mrs. June is in excellent mental health. Her cognitive function is well above average. She is in full control of her decisions." Finally, it was my turn. I stood, legs steady, voice firm. "Your Honor," I began, "for 3 years I gave my son and his wife $33,000. I paid their rent, their bills, their emergencies, and in return they excluded me from their wedding, told me I wasn't one of the special people, and treated me like nothing more than an ATM with feelings. When I finally said no, they decided I must be insane. But the truth is simpler. I finally learned to say yes to myself. Being reasonable does not mean financing grown adults who refuse to stand on their own feet. Being clear-headed does not mean enduring disrespect in silence. I am not incompetent, Your Honor. I am free. The courtroom went silent. Jake's lawyer tried to rattle me on cross-examination, asking trick questions meant to trip me. But every answer I gave was sharp, precise, and calm. The judge watched me closely, and I could see in his eyes that he knew. 2 hours later, Judge Wallace returned with his ruling. His words were deliberate, heavy, like the toll of a bell. After reviewing all evidence, it is the decision of this court that Mrs. June is in full possession of her mental faculties. There is no justification for guardianship. Furthermore, this court finds that the plaintiff's motivations appear rooted in financial interest rather than genuine concern. I had won. Jake slumped in his chair, pale with shock. Sophie's face twisted with fury. Their lawyers shuffled papers quickly, already planning an exit strategy. As they walked past me, Sophie hissed, this isn't over. But I smiled for the first time in weeks. Oh, Sophie, it already is. That night, Eleanor gathered our friends for dinner. We toasted to freedom, to justice, to the power of standing up when silence is no longer an option. Granny June, Frida, the oldest among us, said with a warm smile, "You didn't just win a trial, you won back your life." She was right. In the weeks that followed, I sold my house and moved into a sunny apartment closer to the city. I installed flowers on the balcony, joined an art class, and even signed up for a senior travel group. For the first time in decades, I was spending money on things that brought me joy, not just survival for others. I never heard from Jake or Sophie again. Through whispers, I learned that they had been forced to downsize, Sophie working a real job for the first time in years. Perhaps I thought life was teaching them what my generosity never could, the value of standing on their own 2 feet. Some nights I sit on my balcony with a cup of tea, gazing at the stars, and I think about the woman I used to be, the one who believed love had to be bought, who thought giving endlessly would one day earn her a place in her son's heart. That woman is gone. In her place is someone stronger, someone freer, someone who has finally understood a truth that took me 71 years to learn. True love doesn't come with the price tag. And freedom, once claimed, is the most precious inheritance of all. My name is Granny June, and I have finally chosen to matter to myself.